Let's go to line number 4 and say hello to the MEP, member of the House of Assembly, elected in St. John's Centre, Gerry Rogers. Hello, Gerry, you're on the air.
Hello, Patty. Hello from the big land. I am in Lab City right now. Just flew in from Happy Valley Goose Bay. Been up here for a few days.
Yes, I know. I've been following you on Twitter. I think you're up there with Miss Michael, right?
I am, yeah, and it's been great. You know, we've had a chance to meet with a lot of groups and organizations, with town councillors, with individuals, and the interesting thing is that the message we are getting everywhere we go is about the housing crisis, and people are saying it's a crisis, no ifs, ands, or buts, and people are feeling so vulnerable up here right now, and there doesn't seem to be any relief in sight. I was at the Labrador Correction Center yesterday, and one of the workers there told us he knew of just this week alone on his street, 3 different families got eviction notices because their rents are more than doubling once the families are leaving, and they don't want to leave, and they have nowhere to go. And as a matter of fact, the cook for the correction center has just been given a notice. Her husband is 67 years old. He's got health problems. She's been evicted, and her rent will be over double what she's paying now. People are, and today alone we also heard at the Mokami Status of Women of 2 people, one of them including a housing support worker, who have just been given their notice being evicted. Their rents will double or more. So it's really interesting what's happening up here right now, and people don't see any kind of relief at all. But as a matter of fact, it's starting to really ramp up. So
one of the areas of concern being pointed to is now the influx of workers regarding the Muskrat Falls project and the housing being made available to those workers on the base. Gerry, what's your commentary on that front?
Well, you know, I think it's really interesting that housing has been able to be made available so quickly for workers. The Homelessness Coalition, the Happy Valley Goose Bay one, we met with them, and they have been calling out and asking the government to take some leadership to negotiate with the base to see if some units could become available. There are bachelor suites on the base. There are also houses on the base that have not been used in years but are being maintained, and they really feel that the government has let them down. They want the government to take some initiative and to make that housing available. Now, it makes sense at this point to have the workers there temporarily until a camp is done. But we've been speaking with some of the workers because they were eating at the hotel where we were staying. Mm-hmm. So they're quite unhappy because they have 12-hour shifts. However, they have to be taken from the base in the morning for their breakfast to the hotel, have their breakfast there, then get back on a bus, and then go out to the work site. They say that adds an extra 3 hours on their shift, so because it means for supper as well. So their 12-hour shifts are turning into 15-hour shifts, but they're being paid only for the 12 hours. They're tired, they're not happy, and they've told us that 5 people alone quit just the other day.
They're not getting paid for that 3 hours?
No, they are not. They're getting paid for their 12-hour work shift. So they're pretty unhappy. You know, there's a lot of discontent. And so what we see is that this crisis that we see, you know, anybody could have seen it coming. There has been no plan to deal with this. It's just like rushed in without any plan, without the proper structures in place. And then what we see is Muskrat Falls, you know, we met with Mayor Leo Abbas, and, you know, they have, for the 2 years, been saying there's going to be an impact on our community. Now, Nalcor has said, no, there'll be no impact on your community because the work site is a half hour away. There'll be work camps. But the impact on their community is tremendous, particularly in terms of the housing crisis. The real housing crisis has been created. They're worried about food security in terms of there's not enough food in the grocery stores. Restaurants are blocked. That there hasn't been any acknowledgement from government or Nalcor about the real effects, the negative effects. So sure, there's going to be some good economic spin-offs, but there's also some pretty hard negative effects that people are experiencing, and they feel that they have not been listened to, and so that the problems are just being dumped onto the town, and the town is having to deal with the problems. Again, there's positive economic benefits, but the town and the people of Happy Valley Goose Bay are the ones who have to bear the brunt of the negative.
Points that have been made in opposition to the workers being housed on the basis that it was said at one point that the agreement was now, of course, said we will not put our workers up there. We will not burden the town with the influx of population, even though we do know, and your point is, I think, well made, that the positive impact of more money being spent is, of course, on the plus side, but then the negatives may indeed outweigh those potential positives. The issue is, Gerry, you and I talk about this all the time, and it's an important issue, so I'm glad we do. If this is a one-off issue, then the fixes here for this particular piece of impact is much more complicated, I would suggest, than it is for the overall and the endless affordable housing problems we have. People are concerned with the cost of Muskrat Falls, but yet they don't care about the cost when it comes to keeping Happy Valley Goose Bay out of the equation and the influx of population. I don't know what they expect people to do. If we can't get the work camp up in whatever circumstance, this is a little bit different than the overall and the constant housing crisis that's up there. Is that not true?
Well, I think we have, the immediate crisis right now with the influx of workers, but also there has been a growing housing crisis that we're seeing actually all over the province. And, in the last municipal meeting of mayors that was in St. John's last week, they are all using the word crisis. There is a housing crisis all over the province. And, we don't have an overall housing policy in the province that's looking at our changing demographics, that's looking at the marketplace and how government can take some leadership in working with the private industry, working with the marketplace to have some solid housing policy that helps to mitigate negative effects, but also to encourage private development, particularly in the area of rental units.
Yeah, government has no place in the marketplace. None. No role. Shouldn't.
Well, except in some leadership and to help look at planning and what needs to be done and whether or not government can help mitigate some of the crisis that we have now to help private industry work hand in hand so that private industry can also become part of the solution. And I think that there's some really creative models. There's some good models that are not interfering with the private marketplace, but actually working hand in hand with the marketplace to be able to satisfy the demands that are out there, where it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Yeah.
It's possible.
I've seen some of the models, and some of them do look like they have a fighting chance, no doubt about it. Quick question before we go. What's your opinion on if the market is so hot in that particular region, Happy Valley Goose Bay, and the rents continue to escalate, how come we have not seen private sector invest in the construction of apartment complexes, what have you, to help ease the pain and all the while be able to make a buck?
Well, and what's happening is that what we're seeing right now in the market, it's false, it's not real, it's a boom thing, and it's going to follow boom and bust. And when we see, the elevated price of housing right now, people's houses have gone skyrocketed, but they have no real equity in their housing now in terms of what the price is.
How can that be? How can you have a skyrocket in the price of your home and not have any equity?
Well, imagine if your home was worth $150,000 2 years ago, and now it's worth $350,000. The equity that you had in your house, in terms of a percentage of the equity in your house, is very, very low.
Equity's not a percentage. Equity is a dollar value. If I had a house worth $150 and I had $100 left on the mortgage, all of a sudden it's worth $300, then I got $200 in equity.
Well, unless you still owe a whole lot on that house.
But that's where percentage doesn't play. So, I mean, we're not going to nitty-pick that because that's the mortgage question. But if there is an opportunity, put it this way, private sector are buying apartment buildings up in Labrador. I know this to be first-hand knowledge. So if they're buying them for inflated costs of buying a piece of property, then I wonder why. Some people tell me there's a hurdle with local government to be able to allot new lands for construction of new homes and also for the construction of new apartment complexes. So I think there's also a role for government to play in allowing the private sector to make a few bucks by building these things. And supposing it's a one-off, that's up to the private sector to declare in their own mind whether or not it's a good investment, not for government, right?
Well, I think that, again, that when we look at the skyrocketing rental costs. There are ads. People are talking about ads on the internet in Happy Valley Goose Bay that says contractors only apply. So, the people, the working people of Happy Valley Goose Bay who live there, who are residents of Happy Valley Goose Bay, have to have a place to live. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Most people cannot afford $3,000 rent for a 2-bedroom apartment. Right. And so what's happening, who's going to be working at Tim Hortons? Who's going to, what we're seeing as well is that there are a number of services provided to the public where they can't get workers because they can't afford housing. For instance, correctional officers. They need more correctional officers to come to Happy Valley Goose Bay and to work as casuals. But they're not coming anymore because they can't get affordable housing.
See, that would be a government issue.
Yeah, and it's impacting as well nurses. It's impacting teachers. Mm-hmm. So what's happening is we're seeing the negative effects on the social infrastructure of the area. That's what we're seeing, and that's where I think government has to play.
There's correctional officers and the like, without question, it has to be government play a role inside it. It's a tricky one. You and I have this conversation a lot. I hope we come to the solutions and the balances required, because there is potential models that can work. But if we all continue to dance around, and I don't mean you and I mean everybody as a whole, if we continue to dance around it, we get no further ahead. And these one-off opportunities, these one-off mega projects, they would have come and gone and left the place worse than when they found it. We'll still have no solutions, while the cost then will be more than they are now, where we just continue to bat this back and forth like a political hot potato. Gerry, listen to you and Miss Michael. Enjoy your stay in the big land. Safe travels. I hope you get a chance to take in some of the winter games, which should be fascinating, and stay in touch with the program.
Thanks, Patty.
All the best. Bye-bye.